Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Feeling about that?
103 years old. It's funny because I remember a couple of years ago, my aunt saying, you know what? I think mom's going to live to 105. And so she's 103 now, man. And she looks good. My mom called her and said, happy birthday. And she said, it's not my birthday. What are you talking about? She said, my birthday's February 8th. And my mom said, well, what day do you think today is? She said, I don't know, but today's not my birthday. And so I don't know if she's like in denial after 100 or whatnot, but so there were a lot of people over there just hanging out and celebrating her and just loving on her. So it's all good. It's all good, man.
Is she the oldest person in your family tree or your lineage in the modern era or in any era that you know of? Is that like the oldest person in your family?
She's the oldest living person. We had one more person on my mom's side that lived to 104, but I don't know who that person is. Okay. So if my grandmother makes it to 105, she'll be the longest person on either side of my family that's ever lived.
That's interesting to see that and to study that, to see how that correlates to, what you're doing to promote, vitality and longevity and health, and then how that stacks in and compounds with just genealogy that you have or the ability. Mm-hmm. And then what does that factor in as far as how they lived? I don't think a lot of people look at stress and see how you manage stress and how you. And I didn't really understand what that meant either until I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when you really understand what managed stress means. Mm-hmm. And I had to experience an anxiety attack in order to understand what that actually meant. Mm-hmm. Like, what is happening right now? And it was a very scary experience in my life, because I'd never had anything like that happen to me. But it was also a very awakening experience and a healing experience, because it allowed me to see something that I didn't necessarily understand or have a grasp on. It's like you have to experience something to really understand it, or to actually be able to fully, really, I don't want to say appreciate it, but I guess, fully be involved in it, or fully be invested or affected by it.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes a negative action in our lives to kick our butts into action and really taking a real in-depth look at what's going on. Because I'm sure when you were attacked by that anxiety, you probably were thinking, you know what, man, I'm way too young. And then considering what happened with your father, because sometimes people, when they have anxiety attacks, they think it's a heart attack. And so I'm sure that really triggered a lot of past trauma for you, experiencing what went on with your dad. And so in hindsight, it was a good thing, because it wasn't a heart attack, and it really got you into thinking about longevity, and it got you thinking about your diet and your health. And now, we're going to be talking about gut health and really that whole gut brain connection. Before we do that, I was just thinking about my grandmother, and you were talking earlier about the impact of stress. And, right. For my grandmother, I can tell you, I've known her since she was in her 50s. And so I remember her when, she was very beautiful, very outgoing, always the life of the party. She and her husband traveled to every state in the contiguous United States. So they had a motorhome. And so every place
awesome?
They had these vests, and every state they went to, they would put a state patch on there. And so, every time you see, she has Iowa and Montana and, all of these places that she's gone. And so she definitely lived a good life, and she has been living a good life. She's able to walk still and talk, and she's still witty and funny, and it just really goes to show, if you live a life where you're happy and you're spending it with someone you enjoy, it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think that when you look at blue zones, and which are obviously those areas in the world where people live, to be exceptionally long. I don't know what the number is. Is it 90 or something to that effect?
It's 100 centenarians.
Okay, so it's centenarian. Yeah. Okay, so the interesting thing about it is that when you look at all the common denominators, the one common denominator is that the relationship aspect. It's having a social, whether it's a spouse or a network of people that you're with, and because that alleviates stress, but it builds the companionship and the sense of, there's a lot that goes on with it psychologically as well. So that is the number one thing unanimous amongst all blue zones, is the social interaction.
Absolutely.
But gut microbiome is a big thing as well. And I think it's gaining popularity now. And I don't think what's interesting about gut microbiome health, since we talked about it, is, and now everybody seems to be wanting to talk about it, is the fact that it isn't something that's not understood. Like, it's very well understood. It's been understood for a very long time. Like, I'm under the weather today. I was driving back from Dallas on Friday, and I started to get that tickle in the back of my throat, and I went, oh man. And then today it just kind of, you can hear it in my voice a little bit. But I immediately this morning, I was like, heck yeah, it is going to be 85 degrees today. And it's been cold here.
Whoa, okay, that's a big change.
85 degrees today. In fact, as we sit right now, it's 80 degrees right now. It's beautiful. It feels like it's summertime. No humidity. I'm getting in that sun. And I laid out, I took my shirt off, I laid out in the sun for 20 minutes. And I was like,
good for you.
This feels vitamin D, so amazing, right? Like, so amazing. And that, again, is also well documented, that human beings need sunlight, especially men, because when you get sun exposure, it's the master synthesis for hormone production for males and women as well. So just understanding gut microbiome science and how to eat for your gut is completely revolutionary and changes your life in so many ways, because so many people, and I didn't even understand this because it never really was a problem for me until I made it a problem for me, but so many people live with some type of gastro issue daily, whether it be heartburn or gas, bloating, uncomfortableness, like some way, somehow you're dealing with gastric issues all day long. Majority of people. And I just couldn't understand why it was so prevalent until you understand, obviously, the change in diet, and you understand the lack of people eating certain things that need to be eaten. And I'm a proponent of a lot of different things. But to me, eating right for that, to feed that the gut microbiome, is the secondary brain, or because that communicates with your brain, and it's everything, endocrine system, all of that stuff feeds off of the health of that microbiome, and having a rich understanding of that and what to do. And I can get into what I've done, Len, but I'm curious to know where you're at with that as well. I do take a few supplements every now and then to feed when I feel a little off. But for me, I am always on the quest to find how I can get whatever I need done in my body through a metabolic process. So I have gotten off of a lot of supplements because of changing my diet and eating to produce the right types of micros and macros through metabolic process. To me, is the most important thing. So understanding that, but I'm curious to know where you're at with microbiome and how it's changed for you.
Yeah, for me, I would say the first process was for me to really get an understanding of the relationship between the food I ate and the stress I experienced and the way in which my actual physical gut reacted in my body. And I didn't really understand it. And I didn't understand the fact that when you look at just like when you talk about gut health, you're talking about what you talked about, the gut microbiome. So all of the good and bad bacteria that live in your stomach, because both serve a purpose. So when you have some type of sickness, you need those white cells to go and fight and attack that inflammation, and that causes inflammation. And so, but prolonged periods of inflammation is bad, but short periods of inflammation is what saves you. So you need a combination of the two. So the bacteria is the gut microbiome. And then when you talk about the gut lining, so when you eat food, how does the food break down, convert to nutrients that go into your bloodstream? So I didn't really understand that. And I didn't understand just the whole function of the gut, okay, how does digestion work and nutrition work and all of those things. So that was the first thing, is I really needed to get an understanding of that. And then once I had a basic level of understanding in just how like the hormones are created by the gut, then I learned, okay, like if you look at pictures of your brain and then the brain stem, there's this long nerve that travels down the spine that goes all the way into the gut called the vagus nerve. And so I didn't even understand that the gut and the brain both work together. So you don't have the brain just controlling the gut or the gut just controlling the brain. There's a symbiotic relationship between the two. I didn't understand all of that. I didn't understand any of that. So, like, for example, once I learned it, then I was like, oh, okay. So when I'm asleep and I have a bad dream and I wake up and I'm shaky and jittery and my skin is sweaty, there's a reason, because the gut and the brain are both connected. And so once I started putting all of those pieces of the puzzle together, then it finally started to make sense that, hey, you can't just, because I eat some food and it doesn't make me nauseous or it doesn't make me feel sick, I can't just eat something just because I don't have an immediate adverse reaction. So once I learned more about it, and I certainly don't proclaim to be an expert about it, I just wanted to know enough just to say, okay, now that I understand that there is a real relationship between what I put in my body and what I put in my brain, meaning somebody says something and if I immediately have a stressful reaction to what they say, now I start to produce cortisol. And then when I produce cortisol consistently because I'm always mad, well, then my body's going to react and release bad things into my bloodstream, which is going to increase my propensity to have heart disease. So just what I put into my body is one part of it. It's what I put into my brain and how I treat all of those things working together, which is really what made the difference for me. And I'll turn it back over to you and then we can have a back and forth. But for me, once I realized that I'm in control of my body and my safety over long periods of time, how I, so I had to learn about the value of Stoicism, right? Because there's so many things, and we'll probably get into it, when you look at what happened over the weekend and all of the racial overtones and undertones and, challenges that we're having in Minnesota and the Democrats versus the Republicans and blah, 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 all of these things. You can, if you stew over that and you react emotionally to it, you stay in this constant state of anxiety. So learning the value of Stoicism to say, okay, let's take a logical approach to everything that I can. That doesn't mean that I don't get upset at things. That doesn't mean that I don't react and respond to things, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't impact me physically and mentally and psychologically because of the emotional aspect of it. So I'll turn it over to you, Chris, but really just seeing the gut brain connection as a holistic interconnectedness is really what really changed my trajectory in my life.
I would like to touch also on the fact that most guys and most guys, let's just say guys, in general, don't ever want to think about this and don't even want to talk about it, because the reality is that you can't look. I would love to go pound. I was talking to, what was it? My friend, my son's friend was over and we were talking about food. And I said, look, I'd love to go pound a double quarter pounder with cheese right now from McDonald's. Like, nothing would be more exciting than going and getting a double quarter pounder with cheese with an extra large fry and a shake or maybe even a Sprite. Who knows, right? I mean, it's going to be so great.
McFlurry with some Oreo cookies.
Something good. Yeah, Oreo cookie McFlurry, right? I mean, all of that. Yeah. You just like, you're like, I want to go do that, right? And it would be so great. But eventually what ends up happening is you end up starting to, and this is just what for me, this is just worked for me, is I just started to look at other areas of my life that were important for me. And we're very open about it. So look, I like to be healthy, and I like to be able to perform in all facets of health, specifically extracurricular ones that you have with your wife. So for me, sexual health is extremely important, and it has been important because I enjoy it. It's a big important part of my life and my relationship. Hence the reason why I have so many children, right? This is why
you are fruitful and multiplying.
Just happening, right? But look, I mean, here's the reality behind it. Most guys, most men, and most wives do want that. I mean, I don't think any guy would ever get up at the end of the day and go, I wish my sex life wasn't better. Or I wish I wasn't better in bed. And I started looking at different things in my life and correlating them to areas in my life that I enjoyed. And then I started to realize that if I didn't fix those areas, then I was not going to be able to enjoy other areas. Because that
is a very compelling argument for guys, for sure.
That's what worked for me, Len. Because realistically, it's tough for you to go, well, who cares? Because again, when you're 20, you can keep doing that because your body is able to compensate. So you can just, who cares? And right? But eventually you get to the point where, and I remember that point. I do. I remember I was 36, 37. And I went, what the frick, dude? Like, this is weird. And you know when it's weird. You know when it's weird because you're like, dude, that's not supposed to happen. Like and you start going, what the heck? And thank God, like, I'm in the era of the internet, because if I wasn't born in the era of the internet and I was like in the medieval times, I would probably die of anxiety. I'd be dead because I wouldn't be able to figure out what was wrong with me or how to fix it, right? Because the reality is that you have that wake up call. And that for me was I was, 36, 37, and I was working a lot. And it wasn't even a big thing. It was just that's weird. And then I didn't think anything of it until I started reading. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, dude, like, yeah. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I went, yeah, dude, I don't know what's going on right now. Like, I'm sorry.
Is that when you hit 224 pounds? Was it that time?
I think it was like I was coming down off of that, but it was close. Okay. It was right around that time. It was maybe about 3 or 4 months after that, because you start to realize, like, just by default, that you're like, dude, I'm not getting any new clothes right now. And you fit into these bad boys 2 or 3 months ago. You should fit them again right now, right?
You know when you got shrinking, you're expanding. Right?
You know when you got to put jeans on, you got to kind of walk your hands around the waistline to push it, to stretch them out. Yeah. Right? And then you go, and then you go, okay, yeah, they just need to be stretched out because I washed them.
Right. They're in the dryer, they shrunk on me. No, bro, you expanded.
No, you fat ass, you got fat, right? So, yeah, taking accountability for that, and then obviously diving into the health aspects of it. And then I looked at myself and I went, look, I have 4 boys, and I also have 2 girls, and I don't want them to see that example. I don't want them to see that. I don't want to be the out of shape dad. I don't want to be the unhealthy. Like, I need to set, and not just for me, but for them, because I need them to see that as an example. Like, they should understand and know that that's the standard. And because why not? Why wouldn't you want that type of standard? And because this is a vessel for you, and you ought to take care of it. You ought not to abuse it, because you can. Look, you can freely abuse it, and it will take a lot of abuse from you. But eventually it's going to go, look, I ain't taking any more abuse from you, and now you got to deal with it, because now I want to do everything I can, Len, to make sure that my body doesn't have to take care of me as much as outside of what outside of what it's supposed to do naturally. You know what I mean? Because you should take care of your body so that it can take care of, the aspects so you're not ending up having to take care of the body eventually. And that was it for me. But yeah, you got to make it compelling, because otherwise it's like, why would you want to? Because everyone wants to pound that double quarter pounder with cheese. I want to eat a large pizza. But the biggest thing that I noticed in doing this, and obviously, is look, no one wants to be constipated. I don't understand any of those issues. I don't understand constipation. And not that I don't understand it. I don't understand it because I don't experience it.
You don't experience
it. Right? Eat 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. Just like it's so easy to do because the fiber feeds it, and you'll know it. Fiber feeds your gut. Fiber. Figure out a way to eat the vegetables first before you eat anything else. Like for me, it was finding something that worked. And then you get to a point where you can create so much compensation or so much leverage in your favor that like you can still eat those things that you're like, oh yeah, dude, I want to eat some pizza.
Just in moderation. Yeah.
Because at this point you're able to flex and you're able to, there's a concept that's called keto flex or metabolic switch or metabolic flex, where if you're not used to eat, for me, I'm low carb. I do, Mediterranean paleo. When I do incorporate grains or something I'm not used to, I'm able to go eat In-N-Out and I'm not going to understand and feel that I eat In-N-Out. I'm not going to feel it.
Because you do it in moderation.
Yes, exactly. So you just have to learn how to switch that way. And what I found is that long term, when you get that way, I have such a mental psychological block now where I don't even think twice about it anymore. Whereas now it's like, when I do go have like an In-N-Out or something like that, or a piece of pizza, I'm like, damn, dude, this thing tastes so great. And I don't even need to eat. Sometimes I don't even finish because I'm like, I've had enough. It's just so good. It's interesting how you can change your physiology and again, that has a lot to do with your gut health. Because if your gut is not craving it, you won't want to eat it. And that's the key thing when you'll know you got it. I don't crave junk food anymore. I crave broccoli, which is weird. I crave peanut butter. You end up craving because now your body understands what it is to be in a balanced homeostasis without any of the MSG and the extra sugar and the processed sodiums and the glyphosates and the cornstarch, modified food starch, maltodextrin, all that crap that goes in there. You're now operating on a healthy chain and everything is communicating where you will crave what you naturally need to be healthy. It's fascinating.
There's a couple of things that, you're right. I wanted to give the audience a couple of specifics about it, some ways that damages gut health, and then also some foods that improve gut health. So one is ultra processed foods. Another one is low fiber intake. You touched on that. Another one, we talked about chronic stress. It's okay to have stress from time to time, but chronic stress is not good. Poor sleep is another one. Excess alcohol is another one. And then repeated or unnecessary antibiotics. That's one I really remember back in the 70s. People would throw down antibiotics and that just messes up your gut microbiome in a big way. So we've learned a lot since that time. And then also the last one is the sedentary lifestyle. So if you're sitting around, you have a desk job and you're not getting up and moving your body, that really damages gut health. Now, some foods that improve gut health, fiber you talked about. So, and then also, like vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains, those are all fiber rich foods. And then also a diversity of foods. So a lot more plant variety, and then aim for many different types of plants a week. So leafy greens and things like that. And then also fermented foods. So foods like kimchi, yogurt, sauerkraut, and then also just, stress management. We talked about chronic stress. So finding ways to manage your stress, and then also, exercise and sleep. Those things I am telling you make a significant difference. So I just wanted to share that, just to piggyback on the points you brought up, Chris.
Yeah. And it's excellent. I mean, it's excellent. You can have bread. Just try to eat sourdough. I mean,
sourdough bread is definitely the better one.
Don't eat white bread. It's disgusting. Every hour that you sit, like we're sitting right now, 15 air squats for every hour that you sit like this. You just incorporate it. For me, I don't know how it works for a lot of other people. I just know for me, those types of things are what works for me. Because I'm not the person who's going to go, I got to go to the gym. I don't go to the gym. I only go to the gym for the wet sauna and the hot sauna. Until I build my farmhouse that's going to have both in it, that's the only reason why I go to the gym. I don't go to the gym for anything else. So for me, I enjoy those types of things because I like to walk a lot. I like to go out. I like to be in the out. If I'm sitting, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do 15 air squats between every hour of sitting. And just those small things that you do throughout the day, because you're constantly moving and you're constantly elevating your heart rate, through non-plateau. You're like, because it's always changing, right? You're always it's a complete random. It's not the set thing. That's what creates that metabolic drive, that metabolic health, so you don't crash at the end of the day. You should eat and not feel sluggish. You should have a natural sleep pattern. For me, by 11 o'clock, I'm done for, dude. Done. 11, lights out, less than 10 minutes, and 5:30, 5 o'clock, I'm up and I'm ready to go. And that's been the rhythm that I've been able to get myself into, just because of changing the diet. And don't eat if you're gonna eat. Don't eat 4 hours before you're gonna go to sleep. You have to have 4 hours between you eating your last thing and going to bed. Those make key differences to improve how this whole thing functions, because you got to think about it in respects that every time you eat, it's just like a car engine processing fuel. You're processing, your body has to process that. That's called metabolize. And the more excess stress you have on that machine, and then obviously what type of food you're feeding yourself is the type of gasoline you're putting in your machine. And the other thing too that I think is important, Len, and we can switch gears. You
got to get rid of this before you go to bed, man. Is to fix the circadian rhythms and stop putting that blue light in your body.
Not looking at that screen and not looking at it first thing in the morning, but go to a holistic doctor and get a full panel done, because you might not be a person that should be eating vegetables. You might need to reduce that. You might be a person who could benefit more from eating red meat. You might find these things. I mean, I remember a year and a half ago, I was like, I cannot get lean muscle. And I'm 44. And I was like, I can't get it. And then all of a sudden I started incorporating a little bit more red meat in my diet, because that's an excellent way to build muscle. And it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, all right, cool. I needed the nutrient from that. And the surest thing is you can observe. The best thing is you can observe, because if you have a doctor, like a holistic doctor, can run every panel for you, knows how to do it. Observe your diet. 90 days later, you get blood work. 6 months later, you can get blood work, and you can see your markers and see if it's working for you and adjust your diet based on that. Because the key thing, before I throw it to you, Len, is you have to be able to live with it on a daily basis. And that's where it becomes an issue for a lot of guys, or a lot of anybody, is that it's so easy to go to freaking Jack in the Box, and it's so inconvenient to eat clean. It is. Until you learn how to develop the discipline to eat clean, it's not hard until you develop that discipline. But it's always easier to go to McDonald's because they make it that way. It's by design. So,
yeah, no doubt. I just think that overall, we have to learn as men and women how to do the things that are uncomfortable to make that a regular part of our disciplined life. Because to me, when I look at somebody who's overweight, I have to be honest. I judge, man. And the thing that I judge is I automatically make an assumption that you're just undisciplined. Now, I've been undisciplined. I've been overweight. So I remember looking at myself in the mirror and seeing my gut and thinking, man, this is not.
It just doesn't look sexy,
man.
Dude.
It doesn't, man.
Like, how do you want to go be sexy with your wife and you're going, yeah, baby, look at that gut? How do you even want to go do that? Like, how do you want to go be Keith Sweat? How do you want to go be Keith Sweat?
Right. It just impacted me, man. And so, I said, when I hit 50 years old, I just say, you know what? I'm making a decision that I'm going to live a disciplined life. Now, I really want to be clear. Like, I'm not trying to profess that I'm a gym bro. I don't like the gym, just like you. It's not something that I'm not looking to have 6-pack abs. That's not my outcome. My outcome is simply to eat well so I can live a long, healthy life. I'm not looking to have, a sculpted body, but I just don't want to take my shirt off and see lack of discipline. And so, I don't eat every time I feel not full. That's the difference. I wait until my eating window opens and then I shut it down, but I'm not perfect. And so, just live a life of discipline. And talking about discipline, man, over the weekend, I don't know, did you get a chance to watch the Super Bowl? Go ahead.
I did, and I thought it was great. Okay. Before you say that, something I want to caveat into, because you said discipline, right? Mm-hmm. And it struck with me there when you said discipline, because you said, I don't want to take my shirt off and you don't see discipline, right? Because that would be contrary to your identity, right? So that's the alignment. That's the alignment of masculinity that you speak about, that a lot of I didn't understand that until I got more mature. I think a lot of people don't understand that is the alignment of masculinity is that you can look at someone and say, oh, okay, cool. You can have a big masculine presence, meaning you want to be loud and obnoxious in the room, but you're overweight and you're not in shape. Like, you ought to look the way your body, if you're a guy, you ought to look the way your body was portrayed in statues, right? You ought to look the way you should look in a scientific portrait. That's the way you ought to look. You ought to look the way you look when you're, like, I look at my kids, my sons, and I go, yeah, I remember when I looked that way. And you remember, for those who lost your way, because some dudes, by the way, bravo to them who don't ever lose that discipline, who stay that way throughout their whole. I don't know what that is. I'm curious to actually ask someone that question now, that I've known in my life since the beginning, that's always been that way, that's never gotten out of shape. But you at one point were in shape. You at one point, unless you're an oddity, the anomaly where you have the neo. I can't remember the scientific term, but it's basically neo-obesity, where you're actually born fat. Like, you were born in it. You're at such a disadvantage because the obesity of your mother, that when you're born, you're essentially, you need to be, your body's already geared. Your body's already chemically or whatever it is designed to build more fat cells than muscle cells. It's an interesting thing. You can go look it up. But most people lose that whole alignment of themselves. And I think that when you look at it, most men are always at their best when they're improving something. They're most excited, they're sharp, they've got the energy, they've got that edge. As a man, you have that when you're getting better at something and when you're improving at something. So if you look at all the areas of your life, and you might be good at business, or you might be good at spending time with your family, you might be good at being emotionally available, you might be good at a lot of different things. But at one point, it comes a time where you look at yourself physically and go, okay, I need to become more disciplined with this. And as you do that, you become more disciplined with your diet, and you become more disciplined with your nutrition, because you end up going, dude, I want to get up in the morning and not feel fatigue. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel, I want to feel as young as I possibly can feel, as long as I possibly can. And that starts to become a discipline for you. And when you start to see those results and you start to practice that, Len, that's when you see that energy translate in all these other areas of your life and improve elsewhere. Rising tides lift all ships. So I think that was an important message, just as a side note, because you mentioned discipline. Because at one point you lost the discipline because you were, and then all of a sudden you had to get it back.
So with that being said, if you liked what you saw, please like, comment, share, tell other people about this platform, because at the end of the day, we are looking to just hopefully give you value to make you think differently and look at the same situation from multiple perspectives.
See you on the next one.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.